Good morning, everyone. Yes, so welcome to our discussion this morning of our people of color, representing people of color during this season. And this morning, our discussion is that completion of the year, right? That completion with the color that our generation represents. That is not only a color during this season. And today, I want to focus on the completeness and the sufficientness also of the color. I'm reminded today of a generation that has got a lot on the table, right? And with a lot on the table, the generation has to remind themselves of the color that is their every reaction, that is their prosperity in season, that is where they find themselves at in seasons to be. It is our generation today not only thinking about ourselves, but allowing the completeness of what the universe has made known and has educated about all these years. With saying that, I'm reminded that education started at a certain phase in our lives when we were young. I'm reminded that the education that started took us on a journey in life, and that journey in life is that opportunity that you can decide either to have yourself in the classroom in season or to have yourself understanding the education outside of the classroom. It is that opportunity that life grants us every day. It is that opportunity that during this season, many of us misses that opportunity to understand what is it that the universe in general requires of me to do. Not today, what is it that someone else requires you to do, but that reaction today that I have mentioned before, that is the inner self reaction. And that inner self reaction is that inner voice that not only listens to self in season, but also listen to the universe, requiring us to be attentive, to be assertive, to be awakened and conscious with all that is happening around us. It is that choices that life gives us. And today I want to really sympathize. I have learned that there's a lot happening in South Africa during this season, and I want to sympathize with those families who are going through the same challenge today that this world is going through. And with saying that, I want to be firm on my education during this season. I want to be firm on what AWOKH stands for and why I have allowed myself to endure and to continue to speak, because I have been made aware and I have been made known of all the challenges that is surrounding our generation during this time. And when I came aware of it, I educated on that opportunity that we have to sometimes take that step back in life, to sometimes decide not to react in life, to sometimes decide on what we're gonna react on with all the wars, with all the endless, with all the Ukraine-Russia issues, with all the political issues. It is that one choice that we make in life. It is that opportunity that life educates us on a daily basis. It is that loud sound, that the atmosphere that blows over our generation in season. And when the generation finds themselves in loudness, we need to allow ourselves to listen even to the sound in loudness, right? Because many times when people are loud, then we try to silence them out. But many times when you allow yourself to listen to the loudness of someone without wanting to silence that person out, then you have that opportunity to once again understand what is it that you are being made aware of concerning our generation itself. Our generation itself today is in the completeness of our leadership that represents the elder people in the room, that represents the younger people in the room, that represents religion, that represents tradition, that represents the color of people of color. With saying that, I want to remind us that when I speak of people of color, I speak of every color that we have been educated in primary school, right? People of color, as we have learned to speak of one another with that mindset, with that education of black and white, and therefore people of color does not exclude your white people in the room, right? People of color include includes all the colors that we have been educated in the room, because our generation today is a generation that finds themselves in the room with all of those colors, right? All the countries today represents all the colors that is around us today, all the different ways that our countries live by, all the different traditions that comes along with our countries, all the different upbringings, the different ways of upbringing, right? The different households. And today, all of those generations have decided to intermarry. So the one color in the room, the people of color in the room, the completeness of all the different nationalities in the room is that people of color is representing that attitude of completeness, right? We are in a generation where we have been educated that when someone in your room looks different, then you reject that room, right? When someone in your room looks different, then you try to distance yourself from that person, right? We have been educated in a way that we have had to allow ourselves to be protective according to our households, to be protective according to where we find ourselves at, to be protective with all that is happening in this world. And during this season, our generation, with that education of protectiveness, have been allowed to have the completeness of everything that is happening in one room. The completeness, it revolves around everything that is made visible and made known to you. And with that one opportunity that the universe grants our generation in one season, and the universe says, I give you that, and such is the color of this whole universe, that yes, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of differences, there's a lot of things that we want to in season, want to talk about, want to still argue about, want to still fight about. But I'm reminded today that when you stand with someone that are gun pointing you and they want your cell phone or they want to steal your car, you have one choice in life, right? You have that decision in life to decide to not react or to decide to react. And that is such is our generation during this season. Our generation is in that season where the completeness of colors are being explained to us. And when the loudness of voice, that is the voice of the universe that echoes to educate every one of us, when it speaks to us, then there's lots of misses in the room, right? I had my discussion on my podcast during this month, and we have the final discussion this week. And I'm also going to include that in our discussion today. It is the misinterpretations, the miscommunications, the misperceptions, the misunderstandings that goes along with all the angers, the hatred, the misses. When you make a miss angry, then the miss or the woman gets angry, and then she's sometimes out of control, right? And now when we look at our generation, it is almost like the birth factor of our generation is angry, because there's all of these misunderstandings, misperceptions, misinterpretations, miscommunications, and with all of that, we have that one opportunity to make it fine and to make it work for us and to allow ourselves to be fine during this season. But with saying that, we have to allow ourselves to know when to react and when not to react. So when I educated and I said you need to learn to know how to take a step back. A step back means we need to know when to speak along, when to not speak along with, what to laugh along with, what to not laugh along with, when to get serious about things, because there's serious things happening around us. And our generation find protectiveness in laughing about it, right? But we need to learn that when we laugh about something, then that laughness, if you take it in a way that you disregard the person that you are laughing about, it can stir so much anger, right? And with so much anger, there's so much misses in the room. There is the resentment, there is the misinterpretation, there is the misunderstanding, there is all of those misses that brings confusion, that brings delusion, that brings all of these things that is sometimes unnecessary. And that is where our generation in this season, when we look at the situation that the world is currently facing, when we look at countries that are ready to even start another war, while they look at countries that are already having wars, right? Countries that are already going through pain, right? When you look at Russia, Ukraine today, you realize that there's countries that are standing already ready to strike another country. And then our generation have to ask ourselves one question: how far are we going with this, right? And that question, how far are we going, is that reminder that that allows us to say, when I ask myself, how far am I going? What are you then doing? That is that step back that you're taking. And sometimes when we take a step back, many of us take a step back to many, many years ago. And then we fight many battles that is unnecessary. It's unnecessary for our children. It's unnecessary for us moving forward in life. It's unnecessary for us having the person that stands with a gun in front of you, giving you that one opportunity. It is life give you one opportunity every time. And life requires us to choose that is right, that is prosperous for us. And that is our generation, that every time we react to do something, we need to ask ourselves, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that I'm doing? What am I doing during the season? What am I doing? And that what am I doing is that one opportunity that you give yourself, that whenever you are challenged by whatever is happening around you, because remember, it is a lot that is happening. It is the birth factor of our generation. It is the completeness of colors that we are standing in. It is some countries that are ready to prosper. It is other countries that find themselves in pain that they went through. It is other countries that find themselves fighting out of things that they don't want to be part of anymore. It's like people being in relationships that they know there's a way out, but it's like they are stuck there and they don't know how to find their way out. And the only opportunity is when a baby is in danger, what is your reaction gonna be? When a baby is in danger, are you gonna wait for the baby to get someone there who's educated? Are you gonna wait for the baby to get someone there who's got the merits or the accreditations? Or are you gonna make sure that you do not react in order to react, right? You're gonna make sure sometimes in life that you do not react in order to react, that you do not react in order to react, rather than wanting to be all over the place. And that is where we get to the season that has us that question, the process of color in our season. Because remember, color is there, right? But color is not only in the room, color is in the room with, this is a sweetie cider, right, that I've got here today. Color is in the room with drunkenness. Color is in the room with lots of things. Color is in the room with our generation having to make a choice for themselves, right? It is that opportunity that life says no one in the room can make a choice for you. Even if people try to choose to live your life, even if people try to do this or that to you, it is that one opportunity that you give yourself, right? It is that one opportunity that our generation finds themselves at, and that opportunity sometimes brings so much delusion. It brings so much confusion. What happened in Africa? What happened in the dance club in Africa, where the people were in the dance club? No one knew the delusion that is happening in the club, and that delusion is our generation in general. It is not who did that. It is not who did this. It is not who's the mafia in this world. It is not who started that. It is our generation in the completeness of colors. It is every country's reaction. And when saying that, I want us to focus on the process, the purpose of color in the room, the purpose of color in the room. We have started last year with our purpose room, and our purpose room means that opportunity that life gives you to make a choice, to be in the currentness of your season. And in the currentness of your season, it is that message, that voice, that inner self requires you to learn. We started our journey with our purpose room last year that had us answer that one question. What is it that is having us listening to ourselves, getting to know, to listen to inner self in order to know how to listen outside, in order to know to listen in the environment itself? Because remember, when you allow yourself to be listening to self, you get an opportunity to listen to the voice that also educates outside of you, that also educates and warns you concerning life. And when you learn to respect that body, many of us during season has been educated to learn to respect. The church educates us that same principle. Everyone educates us that, not for anything, because life requires us to abide by right and to abide by wrong. There's everything that life has educated us on. We cannot ignore any of it. Whatever we see visible around us today, it is that opportunity that life requires our generation to understand that the universe does not only consist of humanity, there are the power and the strength of this universe. There's so much when we look around ourselves. There's so much that is happening around ourselves. There's so much that the universe has not yet introduced to our generation, that our generation is not yet getting ready to understand and getting ready to get familiar with. So no, it's not that the human beings are the stronger. No, because when the force of this universe takes over, then there's no strength that can stand against that. And human beings learns that every single day. We learn it every single day. And the one request that we have is to not be arrogant about where we find ourselves at, is to not be arrogant about what we do in life, is to not be arrogant about what we have in life, is to not be arrogant with the universe itself, is to know when to take a step back, to know when not to react, to know when not to be angry, to know when not to say things, to know how to continue to educate our generation. That is the only thing that we can do. It is we can continue to educate ourselves. We can continue to educate ourselves because life took us on a journey that started with education. Everything about life is education, and that education didn't stop. And the one opportunity that social media is giving us in the season, it is to continue with the education. Social media is saying that, you know what, university years are over, school years are over, primary school years are over. There's a lot more than only primary school, secondary school, university, and then you go and to do that job. There's a much more, and social media was implemented just only also for that generation that also needs to be in the room. That there's people that maybe didn't go to school, and then they have that opportunity to become something in life, and that opportunity is granted to us everywhere on social media, everywhere on our social pages. Life is everywhere, every season, educating us to be fine in the room. I've mentioned yesterday in my podcast that the education of Instagram, that there was TikTok, right? And TikTok to me was all the colors. It was all over the place. The parents was there with their children. So lots of things were on TikTok, right? And then there's Instagram. Now, Instagram to me is a bit different. And I, on my Instagram in this season, is a bit different. And I'm learning a bit different than Facebook, right? Or than I used to be on Facebook, right? So on Instagram during this season, I'm all about listening to what does the universe educate me concerning the cars on the road, right? Concerning the different cars on the road, concerning the different parts of the universe that comes to educate us in season, right? Concerning these cars are being driven, but there's a part of creation, there is part of the driving of those cars, there is part of the form of those cars. And my looks in season was the universe speaking to me about the different type of cars and the different part of creation that comes to educate us in certain times in our lives. And that is why it is important for our generation to learn not to get so angry so easily, to learn not to want to erase people from the face of the earth. Because when the universe comes to educate Rabia, and Rabia's not there anymore because someone has been angry on the ground floor with humanity, while the other part of the universe knew that 2022 is Rabia's year. In 2022, a different part of creation is going to come and educate Rabia. Now what the universe is fighting with humanity about during this season, it is that one lesson that you cannot erase someone from the face of the earth because you as a human being, do not understand that in season. Yes, my husband is in the room and he says I'm a bit loud, but I'm gonna be a bit fine just now. I'm gonna talk about something just now. Other than that, when the universe educates you concerning what is happening around you, and you want to be angry with Rabia concerning that education, right? Because it's the same voice, right? And now you want to erase Rabia from the face of the earth because you are a bit angry with Rabia in the room. And when the universe comes in 2022 to come and say, where's Rabia? Then they say, no, Rabia was angry with that person. Then the universe says, I don't care. I give you a punishment for that because a part of creation knew that in 2022, the 22nd of 11 is Rabia's year, and Rabia had to be in this country, and Rabia had to have that job, and Rabia had to be there because that such is the universe, right? And then they said I look like a type of car, right? My hairstyle and everything. Because there's a certain type of car that maybe Rabia had to drive in season that Rabia doesn't have currently. And the universe anoints you with that presence that is with you. And the universe says, but why does he have that hairstyle and that look and everything and the presence? Where's the car? Why doesn't he have the car? And then they say, no, but that one was arguing with that one. And that one said that he did this wrong and this wrong. And then the universe itself, the strength of creation itself, punishes humanity because of arrogance. And our generation in this season needs to know that what happens around us is that attitude that we sometimes gonna have to say that, you know what, unnecessary fights is unnecessary. You cannot stand in the way of creation that wants to come and educate, and then you are not fine with the person, and then you want to be angry with the person and you want to erase the person from the face of the earth, because sometimes human beings want to manipulate the universe, and now they want to erase Rabia so they can give whatever Rabia has to someone else. And then the universe says, but you can't give it to someone else because it's part of Rabia. It's part of who Rabia is. It is something that she has been born with. You can't take it away from her. And that part of her is moving into another phase of the universe. It's moving into another dimension of the universe. And it's ministering from there, and it's the same Rabia. And humanity does not understand that education, because humanity thinks education stops at the university, and when you have a degree, and only those people with the degrees needs to be there, needs to be there, needs to be there. And now we have Rishi in England, who's the Prime Minister of England, and England is sitting with Russia and Ukraine, and Rishi is from India, and India is in poverty, and the whole world is chaotic, and there's war and there's gangsterism relating to that war in Russia, Ukraine, and the whole world has now got India who's in poverty, but the Indian person is managing Europe, and the European people are sitting back, and the whole world doesn't now know what's gonna happen next, because Rishi has finances, is educated in finances, and now he's the Prime Minister of England. England has got wars that they have been dealing with for years, wars that Rishi does not understand. There's gangsterism that is relating to the European people, to the apartheid people that moved from Nelson Mandela's team, and that when Europe came to help Nelson Mandela's team, they are the same team in season that the universe are speaking about. The universe is speaking directly to Europe, directly to Cyril Ramaphosa on the seat, directly to those guys out of prison. The same things that has happened is the same things that the universe says. Do not be arrogant when you choose a prime minister because of what you think is fine and right. Remember Putin and Zelensky, from Ukraine, from Russia, Ukraine born, Russia born, India in poverty, but India is managing England. How can India manage England if India is looking like that? Has Rishi been to India? How many times has he been visiting India? What did he go and do in India? Is all of that visible? Is he only a finance minister? Is all about this generation about humanity, about economics, or is it about the human beings being fine? Is it only about finances? Are we only living for finances? Because remember where Putin and Zelensky are sitting, and it's a lot of things happening, and not anyone can just be in the room. And that is why when we make these decisions concerning the color of our generation, we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? What are we saying yes to? What are we saying no to? There's a lot of things that the universe is still educating. There's a lot of reasons why South Africa had to make that one decision not to take Cyril Ramaphosa off that seat, because the universe is still speaking of the Nelson Mandela Cyril season that happened from Witwatersrand prison, and now the generation wants to wipe that president from the seat, and they want to have him off the seat, and the universe is saying if you're going to take him off the seat, then South Africa is going to get a hiding, because the universe is speaking concerning that generation, because they are still completing the completeness of colors, where life is still speaking through that whole team. So how can you now want to go and erase them? How can you now want to go and remove them from the seat while the universe is still speaking about the same issue? And those decisions are very important decisions. We cannot just do things because we are arrogant. We cannot just do things because we want to. Life is not about the merits. Life is not about your university degree. Life is not about only about what you have in your hands. There's so much more than where and what is visible to the eye today. And therefore we allow Rishi that time, and whatever Europe decides, they need to look at the completeness of what is happening. They need to look at the gangsterism in their country. They need to look at Africa that also is in the country, at the European police that also needs to get in hand, at the misunderstandings because of the apartheid years. We need to look at all of these things. And while we are looking and listening to all of these things that are happening, we cannot try and manipulate Europe, because remember, Europe has been good to all of our countries. Europe has been good for us. Europe has been good for us. So even though you are angry about the apartheid years, even though people are still sitting there and being angry and thinking that they can manipulate, there's one thing that I'm asking you is, what is it that you are doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And once you answer that, then I want to tell you, my sister went, we all had to go to South Africa to Brother Zat's wedding. You know what my sister did? My sister took her family. She put all of us, all of them on the photos. She said, you know what? Europe has been good for our family. You know what? My children are going to university. So whatever is happening in Europe, my children are born in Europe. I'm from South Africa. Her and Leon went to South Africa. They took a photo. They put the whole photo on Facebook to tell our generation that we need to ask ourselves, when we are part of all of these fights and arguments, what are we doing? Because Europe has been good to all of us. They have been good to our children. They have been good to Africa, no matter what we went through. They have been good to us. So we need to not try and manipulate the situation. No one needs to try and manipulate the situation, because Antoinette had one question and she says, we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? Because this country has been good to all of us. Let us not manipulate the situation that is happening there. We know there's a lot of Indians, there's a lot of things happening. We love our Indian people, but there's a lot of things that we need to listen to when we make decisions like that. There's ways that we can decide, that we can know what is it that we are truly busy with in this world. Is it another war? Is it another drunkenness? Is it another misperception? Is it another battle? What is it that we are truly doing, so that we don't go and manipulate one another? That's the currentness of our season. And then I want to be at the reaction of generation. When we answer that question, we ask ourselves that, with the reaction of our generation, where is it that we are going? Where is it that our generation are moving to? Because we have one decision, and that decision is, we need to learn to listen. We need to learn to know when to apply and what to apply, what to do and what not to do. When answering that, I want to remind myself of Jacinda Ardern that went to America. Jacinda Ardern went to Joe Biden a few months ago. And while she traveled to Joe Biden, she first went to Singapore. And when she went to Singapore, she went to Joe Biden. And then when she went to Joe Biden, the next day, Europe had the next day, Joe Biden, America had no milk, right? The baby milk was all up. And Jacinda went to do tradings because the milk is also up. They're going to sponsor America with milk. The milk was up the next day after Jacinda was in America. Then there was no milk for the children, right? What are we doing? And after that, Jacinda came back, right? She received the merit, she received the education, she received the awards and everything, right? Because that's his life, right? All about merit and education. The one question was, what are you going to feed the children? Because now the milk needs to go to America, right? There's lots of conversations in this world. It's not scientific knowledge. It's not scientific knowledge. It's not a secret. It is such his life. Such his life. All the colors are there. They're doing these things. They're putting on the television. We see all these things. It's visible. And what are we doing? She went to go and feed the American children. And then the American children's milk was up. And then there's lots of things already happening in our countries. And then Zelensky says, but Jacinda, you need to come to my country also. Jacinda is Jacinda, right? She's from New Zealand, right? New Zealand is so right. And Jacinda now has to go to Zelensky. And Jacinda said, no, I already went to Singapore. I already went to Biden. And I can't still come to Ukraine. And then I said, what are we doing? That was such is the trend, right? But the missus in the room is the next day the milk was up. And the next day the children of America had to be fed. And the next day there's a lot of things happening in Ukraine. And Ukraine is calling Jacinda also. And the children have to be fed. But the milk is up. And the anger is a lot. And the hatred is a lot. And a lot happened in the world. So what are we doing? Okay. Now we have three options. Three things that we need to ask ourselves. It's either we're trying to commit suicide, It's either that someone is trying to protect someone else out there, or it's either that we are all a bunch of killers, right? So when we look at the trend of our parliamentary leaders, when we look at the trend of our presidents, when we look at what it is that they are doing, then we have those three answers to give, those three questions. It is either that this generation is committing suicide, it is either that this generation is trying to protect someone and trying to protect themselves only, and certain parliamentary leaders abide and live by that. Because remember, people on the ground floor dying and the parliamentary leaders are fine, right? So what are we doing? And then, or it's either our generation is a bunch of killers and we don't care and everyone just does what they do. And they ignore the fact that these things are happening around them. And then when we ask ourselves, and when that is visible to us, we need to ask ourselves, what is it that our generation are doing? Because remember, some people say you need to rewrite a script. You never rewrite a script. You change the page over because life told you that is the script, that is the book that you are writing. You don't go and rewrite it. Why not? Because the word has been spoken to you. You don't go and change the word the way you want to. You don't go and change life the way you want to. Because remember, the selves of people are full of books. Everyone, when they speak on the television, there's lots of books. No one has decided to implement one book tablet. They take all the books that are published away and everyone works from that. You get some book glasses, you put book glasses on, you work from a tablet and you try to save paper, right? Because the environment is also there. We need to also take care of the environment. And that is just that rewriting of how we want to listen, how our presidential leaders want to lead, and the things that are truly necessary and required to do. With saying that, then we need to ask ourselves, that there's lots of language differences. There's lots of communications, educations, university degrees, and the changes that comes along with those degrees. When you look at the South African public today, you look at the university person that has got the job, that is driving the car, that is earning the income, but the half of South Africa doesn't have an income at all. Half of South Africa is in poverty, but the other half of South Africa's salaries is more than 50,000 rand a month. How do you get that right? How do you get a country that is in poverty and the half of the country is earning, got a house, got a car, got all the things? They go and buy food from 5,000 rand a month, and half of the country doesn't have food on their table. Who is our economic person? It is not only about that, but what are we doing? Then we go on. So that attitude, that's the university degree, that's the people that went to university, that is the car that comes along with it, that's the attitude that comes along with it. It transforms our whole generation. And what do? Then our generation fights one another like that. And then we ask ourselves, but why are we fighting one another? Because what is it that our countries are doing? What is it that our leaders are doing during season? There's war, there's confusion, there's gangsterism, but that one option is there's no two ways to decide. Life gives you all of these options, and life says there's only one way about it, and is that one choice in life. And then our generation fights, and we look at Reese and we look at the prime minister that could have been chosen, and then we look at a woman and a man. And then they had to decide. And then they said, oh, but we're still fighting about equality. So let's not choose the woman, because the woman can sometimes speak loud and she can sometimes be arrogant. It's not only that. And then that was also part of the choice. And then they said, let's choose the man in the room, because he's the only guy. We took Boris Johnson off while he was still busy, because Boris Johnson was also drunk and doing what all and everyone was doing, right? We had lots of reasons for doing that. But what is it that we are truly doing, right? And then when we come to that, we have to ask ourselves that the completeness of understanding where our generation finds themselves at is that we are made known and that are made visible to us during the season. And when we represent, we need to say, what is it that we represent? Am I trying to impress someone? Am I trying to make a resume? I always ask that question. Am I trying to build a CV? Am I trying to have the best job? Am I trying to build for my family, for my household? What is it that we are doing? Because there's some things in this life that we cannot ignore. There's some things in this life that we have to decide, what is it that we are defined with? Are we defined with the suicide gang? Are we defined with the parliamentary leaders that are protecting themselves and killing the everyday people? Or are we defined by people who are also killers? Or are we defined by the people that lives in the completeness of understanding that when Instagram was implemented to tell you one thing, and that is do not get angry. Because remember, when you go on these social pages, you see many things and you have many opportunities to get angry. But what do we learn on these social pages? It is that you are not standing in front of that person. So there's no one standing in front of you with a gun. You have that one opportunity that life educates us through Instagram and through our Facebook pages. Most of all, I am working on my Instagram during the season because life educates us through Instagram. You have that lot of opportunity when you look at someone's post to get angry about it, right? And then life teaches you to take a step back and to not get angry because you are not standing in front of the person, to give yourself some time to understand why did they post that, why was they so reacting, why is they that. So all of that language barriers is now then being prevented. What does life teach us about that? Life teaches us that the Indian person has got their reason. They speak Indian, right? The language barriers concerning the European people and the Indian people, the upbringing. Some of them were birthed in Europe, but they are not natural Europeans. Some of them are there and some of them are not there. Those language barriers that are also in the room, the misinterpretations, the misunderstandings, the miscommunications, the misperceptions. And then we ask ourselves, it's good to have a laugh about Risi, but where's the laugh going? Because remember, laughs can make people very angry. And when people get angry, maybe Rusi is there so that everyone can have a laugh at him. But when we have a laugh at him, we remember that people were also laughing while Ukraine is sitting and while Russia is bombing and all of these things. So what is it that our generation are doing, right? Where is it that we find ourselves at? What is it that we are defined with? And therefore, what do we say about us? What do you say about you? What does Rabia say about Rabia's attitude during the season? We all have that one opportunity with that people of color this season to answer that. The years brought us to this far. Yes, we do not disregard all the things and we do not disregard the challenges in the room. And yes, there's a lot that has happened. Life educates us in the harshest ways. Why? Because we are mere human beings and we need to know that life can transform us in one day. Life can wipe the whole surface of this whole earth up in one day. Why? Because other planets has been bombed up before. There's lots of films that has been written about it. There's lots of things that happened on other planets. That same generation of people that were on those planets are finding themselves on Earth today. All of those people are still angry. Some of them are remembering what happened. Others can't remember. Some of them know what happened. Some of them has written the books of what happened. Some of them knows that family was angry with that family. That happened at the planets. And all of that is in our veins and we are reminded about it during this season. And now what does life do? Life requires us to be on social pages so that we can learn to take a step back and not to get angry. So that we can be educated about what happened years ago. Because remember, the televisions don't tell us everything. The social pages have got all the colors, all the different countries. No one can be excluded. Everyone is on the social pages. The television decides to have a white person there and to have an Indian person there and to have that person there. And there's the social pages that does not exclude. The social pages abuse us sometimes, but when you do not allow your children to be on there to be abused, then you listen to what does life educates you on Instagram. Why is it important that our children this season sometimes need to stay out of the room? If they are fine, they can stay in the room, but there's a lot of things that happens. Everyone is putting their emotions on there. Everyone is angry with everyone, but the result of that attitude and the result of that anger is the color of our generation during this season. It is that everywhere someone can silence you. On your social page, they cannot silence you. When they exclude you, you go and open another account and you do that again. Nigeria does that often with people. Nigeria does hacks the people's accounts and they lock you out. And then they say such is life. And then I get angry with the Nigerian people and I shout for days, right? But I can't even shout because Nigeria has been good to my sister Antoinette, right? Every time we need a person, then Sister Joy is there. Sister Joy doesn't have to be there. Sister Joy is an educated lawyer, but Sister Joy is Antoinette's best friend. And every time Antoinette requires Sister Joy, and then Sister Joy says Nigeria is in the room, Antoinette. Such is life. We have so many angers concerning countries, but our families are families. And sometimes we don't know it. Sometimes we want to be angry with people and we have to ask ourselves, how far are we going to get angry with one another? Until when are we going to get angry with one another? Because because this world needs true leaders, and these true leaders wants to lead us, and these true leaders are still educating us. Our elderly people. I'm very excited about the Chinese elderly parliamentary leader who is in the room during the season, because him and Putin, yes, they are educating us. These elder people, Biden, they are educating us. Zelensky and Putin needs to work together, because there's a lot that happens. What Putin is saying to Zelensky is every country is getting stronger. Putin wants Russia and Ukraine to get stronger, because one country can decide to take the whole world over, and then other countries can't stand the test of time. And that is what they are educating us in this season. It is that there's lots of things. Everyone thinks that we knows about the gangsterism. Putin is saying that he's been through the years on this earth. He has been through all the challenges. He just sometimes wants to also educate what he can still educate. Putin is sitting there. There's language barriers. There's language differences. The world misunderstands because they speak in a different language. When it's translated to us, when we understand in a different language, Ukraine doesn't understand what Putin wants to do. Ukraine says, what are you going to do? Because no one knows the intentions of the other one, right? But is that one option that we all have, and that is to be fine in life. And that is that Putin wants to say something. The Chinese parliamentary leader is also an elderly guy. He also wants to educate our generation, because we think we are old, we think we know a lot, we think we know what's happening, and then they say there's one country that can take this whole world over in one instance, and they want to prevent us from that. So sometimes they want to have those discussions, but they don't know how to say that, and sometimes maybe that's all they want to say. I pray and I hope that Putin and Zelensky will find a way to work through that, so that they can understand what is it that they are wanting to say, because there's countries that are getting stronger. China is educating their people about countries that are getting stronger, and everyone's attitude is different, because the Christians fight with the Muslims, those one fights with those ones, the Sangomas fight with the church people. It's a whole battle that's going on in this earth, and we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing, so that we don't go and fight unnecessary battles that we could have left, that could have been prevented, that could have been out of the room. And that is the color of where the reaction, the attitude of our generation during this season. Life gives us an opportunity to be fine. The universe is life itself. The universe gives us an opportunity to be fine. The universe says, I am a wide universe, I am very big, I am very far, I'm very deep, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. But the old generation don't yet understand what is hidden in this universe. So we have one thing, and that is not to be arrogant about our attitudes, because our generation and every generation learns every season to know when to take a step back, to not want to keep people in poverty, to look at all the countries in general, and to not tell yourself, oh, that country's skin color is too different, so that country must go and sit. And then they have a laugh about it. And now the whole world goes through that same pain, and they say, you were laughing at that country, and now we're laughing about you again. But we have to ask ourselves, how far are we going with the laughing? Because then we have to decide, if we're going to now laugh for that, then people are going to get angry. And when people get angry, things happen. Things happen. People are standing already ready to set off other bombs and ready to set off all the things that goes along with it. And sometimes it's unnecessary things. Sometimes the talk around the table could have been different. And in this season, with the drunkenness, with the loudness, with the colors, with the completeness of the year, with everything that is happening, we need to allow ourselves to know what is it that the universe are trying to say to us. Yes, we're going to allow everyone to listen, but we're not going to ignore. Because remember, life gives you rights, life gives you wrongs. Life says you make a choice. Life says you can all day, every day have wrong on the room. But remember, when you have every day wrong on the room, we call drunkenness wrong. And why we call it wrong, I want to speak about this now. Because when we were challenged with the COVID virus, then I learned when I take a sip of whiskey and I drink a teaspoon of whiskey, then it kills the germ of the virus, right? It immediately responds to the germ. And then I take some whiskey and I put it by my nose also. So if I breathe something in that is maybe germies to my body, then I rub some strong whiskey by my nose and I kill the germ immediately on my nose. And I drink a sip of whiskey until my chest feel opens, right? I learned that while I was a bar lady. The elderly people in the bar came to teach me that lesson. They were all teachers. And they came to my bar every afternoon after school. And when they came to the bar, they always used to say that the children at school are very, very, very arrogant. And they can't really teach the children because the children swears at them and the children don't want to listen to the lessons that they are teaching them. And they came to teach me after school. They teach me that, you know what, this is going to happen in life. And there's things like a glass of whiskey that is also sometimes fine for the body. You drink it with a little drop of water. You don't go and drink a lot of it. You drink it with a little drop of water, and it sometimes clears the throat. It sometimes kills the germ. But remember, there's also other things in the whiskeys. Then my auntie calls and my auntie says, remember, there's other things also in the whiskey. They are making it different than we used to make it those years. So that's where we come to what Jacinda went to do. That is right. She went to go and trade, right? Because there's a lot of angers. And when we trade, there's a lot of angers in that comes into our countries. There's a lot of angers in the alcohol, a lot of things that people put in the alcohol because that country is angry with that country. And that country is angry with that country. But we need to ask ourselves, how far are we going with all those angers and all those hatreds? Because we can really make it fine. We can really live in the completeness of all the colors. All the colors in poverty can be fine. Africa, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Palestine, all the countries in the world, Syria, we always forget Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq and Iran. All those countries can be fine, right? But we need to be allowing ourselves to learn, to know when to listen, to know not when to get angry, to know not to be so arrogant, to go on your Instagram page and you learn and you listen to the abusive message and you don't get angry about it. You listen to people calling you all those names and you don't get angry about it. You don't get angry about it. You tell yourself, I'm not going to pull the gun out of my pocket because why am I going to get angry? I'm not going to pull that gun out of my pocket because why am I get angry? I sit there, I listen, I allow myself to listen. Why is the universe speaking to me in this way on my Instagram page? Because remember, it is the spirit, the same spirit within you that tells you to tune onto your social page. It is the same spirit that is in your house, that is you, that is the spirit of the universe, that is the spirit of truth, that is the spirit of creation, that is in your body and that requires you to listen. Then you go on your phone, you open the phone, you do not get angry, you open it, you read the message, you close it again. I was listening to someone a few months ago, last year. It was a rapper, right? I think it was Zadrul. He came and he was rapping. And he was like, don't mess with my sisters. Don't mess with my sisters. My sisters, my sisters. And then I'm like, what's this guy angry with me? Is he telling me that I'm now messing with American sisters and all of that? And I closed the phone immediately. And I think, and the universe says, it was late in the evening, about midnight. And I closed the phone. And the universe says, now you close the phone. And then I'm angry with John Rule. And I'm thinking, hey, man, this guy, man. He's sitting around that table. And then I open the phone again. And then I go on Instagram again. And then I listen to him again. And then I listen and I look at him and I say, but there's the Spirit of God. That Spirit of God is also in Brother Zach. He looks like Brother Zach. And then I close the phone and then I say, oh, the Spirit of God in him was speaking to me. That's the same Spirit in Brother Zach about something in my life. And I had to go and listen rather than getting angry. And I looked and I listened and I said, oh, the Spirit of God in Zadrul. It looks just like Brother Zach. Look at him. And then I was saying, oh, he sounds like Brother Zach also. What's the Spirit of God in him? He's the same Spirit. He's the same Spirit of God. He's the same Spirit of God. Sometimes we just need to listen, to listen, to listen. Such is social media during this season. We have all the countries on there. We have all the colors on there. We are all on there and we can all sometimes be loud, but we don't have to be angry. We don't have to be killers. We don't have to commit suicide. We don't have to be protecting only ourselves. If we can speak up for what is happening around us, then I do that. Sometimes the guys don't like me doing that. But I said, if the police pick you up for what Rabia said, then you tell the police, Rabia said you are not going to be in prison this season because it's people of color season. Because the police are also corrupt. Everyone in this world is corrupt. So no one takes no one to prison. They wanted to take Donald Trump to prison. I says, you leave Donald Trump because remember, when America started and when Donald Trump started with presidency, America had lots of terrorism. What did Donald Trump did? He made lots of treaties with the countries, and then there was no terrorism in America. And then he stopped the whole terrorism. I said, you don't put him in prison, because remember, he's going to do something. I hope Rishi's going to do something during this time. They say keep him for some time and listen to what he's going to do, but let it not be to manipulate Europe, because then I'm not going to be fine. Then I'm going to be shouting on my phone again tomorrow. Other than that, I have nothing to say. That is all. Guilty or non-guilty, I'm not guilty during the season of anything, so let you not be guilty of anything. Don't let anyone tell you that you're guilty, because if you're gonna keep yourself guilty there, then you're gonna sit in mental challenges, then you're gonna sit in abuse, then you're gonna sit in manipulation, then you're gonna sit in hatred, then you're gonna sit in the room, and then you're gonna close the door, and then they say, but life is not also about the church. Life is about much more than opening the church door, and sometimes people have to open the church door, and when they open the church door, they open their eyes, and when they open their eyes, they sometimes get drunk and they get sober, and then they open their eyes and they say, yo, but there's more to life. There's more in this world than just living in the church, than just being in church every day praying. There's so much more that we can learn from everyone, and that is the completeness about generation. That is Instagram in the season. That is when the church people decided to wear all of their clothes, and everyone said, why is the church people dressed like that? And the church people says, the universe says we can dress like that because people go to the beach and they put their two pieces on in the beach, and you also look at that on the beach. So why are you telling us that we are not fine to do that? And then they all went on social media and they all did that. And then no one was understanding them. And then they said, wow, on the beach, y'all then also do that. And y'all then also look at us. So don't come and tell us now. And then we put our beach swimming suits on also. And we also educated them. Because such is life. When life comes and life comes to Rubia, and the universe comes, and the universe educates Rubia from a different part of creation. And the universe says, Rubia, now you put your two-piece on and you go and stand on Instagram. Then they say, can't do that. Then the universe says, on that day that you don't listen to me might be the day that you have to listen to me. So that is also where we are at in season. It is that people want to educate us. That is their ways. But the universe sometimes speaks to you about where you need to be. And you sometimes have to listen and apply that listening. And that is important. That is all of us. Thank you to all our influencers. That's going to be on the pages again. We're excited to have everyone on the pages again, but we are also knowing that there's lots of syndicates against women, syndicates against lots of people, lots of misunderstandings and misinterpretations. They said women were saying a lot, and Rubia is also saying a lot, but we have to say it sometime. We can't always be silent, and that's only why I'm saying it. And other than that, they say women was a bit too aggressive, so every woman went off because they said that these guys and the churches and everyone is getting angry. But now they know that you also go to beach, and also beach is there. But they say that even though we do that, these kidnappers also look at us, and they also look at our photos, and they also want to just warn us about that sometimes, so that we are not arrogant about it. Because these kidnappers believe that they are your boyfriends, and then they are fine with it, and then they get angry with you, because then their team members also get angry. And they say such is of the mindset of our generation. It's very interesting mindset, but it happens all on Instagram, and I have a very good laugh at it. But it is things that are happening, and they just want us to know that, because it happens, and we hope that everyone is going to get out of that mindset, and that the mafia in this year, because the mafia says they're looking after all of us, and that the mafia in this year will be able to also teach those guys that are just wanting to go and do that, to also teach them to also know not to go and kill, and to go and kill themselves and all these things, that they don't have to do that. Other than that, we are all fine. We don't know why they're kidnapping human beings, because they're eating human beings. But if they are eating human beings, then they can ask our families, and we can maybe no, you can donate. People can donate. People can do it. There is people who wants to commit suicide sometimes. They can do that. Other than that, everything is fine. If people are not fine with what you are doing during the season, I've learned one lesson also, that if people are fine, people need to step away from you, and they can tell you maybe why. If they are not fine with what you are doing, they need to sometimes just step away, and you need to sometimes get away from the oppression and the abuse for sometimes. But other than that, you sometimes allow life to educate you. I like my hairstyle during this season, and if everyone loves my hairstyle, I have been excited, yes, with this hairstyle. Other than that, South Africa, don't be too loud, because they say South Africa is stirring a lot, and there's a lot of gangsterism in South Africa that works for different teams in different parts of the world. And that gangsterism has caused all of these gangsters to want to argue about it. And they want South Africa to not be so loud and so arrogant and swearing on everyone, because they don't sometimes know what they are causing in South Africa, because there are lots of teams, and every country, every workplace is different teams. So if you work for a different job, then your job is owned by a different syndicate, and then all of those syndicates sometimes gets angry. So because it's their company's name and all of the things, these guys think like that. They think it's their company's name and all of the things that goes along with it. So we need to just be conscious and very conscious about that also. That is all that I had to say, that I remembered, that I had to tell everyone about. It is just that the cars on South African roads, I sympathize with what happened to my friend. We did not know about these things, but I think there's a lot that happens with the cars. There's a lot that happens. I don't know, but I think the cars are being steered by computers in different countries, and those people, it's children doing that, and they sometimes take control of the steering wheel, and those are things that happened. I've learned to know that that happened with someone that I've worked with. My condolences to that family also. And we learn that nothing in life is in vain, that even the person's life is not in vain, and we have to allow ourselves to not be angry about what has happened, but to learn that the strength of the universe is the strength of the universe, and it educates us sometimes in very different, difficult ways, and in ways that you as a human being do not have control over. We learned that during this season a lot, that we do not have control over all of those things, and because it's people's mindsets that are people that are doing this, that wants to control other countries, and they now are working on computers. One of the times it has been on television that there's a type of car that they steer with a computer. So that is things that are happening in our generation. And therefore, when our people are on cars, what they did and what they educated me about on Instagram is that people should drive very slowly. So they constantly put cars on Instagram, right? And when they put the cars on, they tell people to drive very slowly, because other guys are driving and steering the cars from other countries also, because the computers can do all of these things. That is only what I've learned on Instagram. I've learned that on Instagram, and that's why I've constantly said that, and I've constantly shared the car videos on Instagram to educate that people must drive slowly and all of these things. Yeah, so there's a lot happening. So South African people, please be cautious about the cars, and I am very, very, very cautious during the season. I'm not going anywhere, because in midnight also I have voices in my house through the computer the whole night, and sometimes you hear those voices the whole night. It is people that can do that, and people that are ruling this world. And one day a guy came to my front door also, and he came to ask me lots of questions. So the world looks like that today, and we need to be very cautious about what it is that we do and where it is that we are with whatever we do. So yes, women that went off their Instagram and social pages, that's very good, because that is all things that are happening during this world. Other than that, I have nothing else to say during the season other than that. Then it's fine. Thank you, everyone. I will continue. Yes, we're going to have the parenting discussion in the month of November, my birthday month. I'm excited. Next week, Tuesday, 1st of November, yes, 22nd of 11. And yeah, so it's been a season. It's been a season. And yeah, so we appreciate everything that is happening around us. We appreciate, and we just continue to be fine, and we continue to be assertive to what is happening around us, with what is happening on the social pages. And yes, we've mentioned before, don't go on the social pages a lot. And when you go on there, don't post a lot of things. Don't post where you're going. Don't post things that you are doing, and all the cars and things that are happening. Don't the influencers, don't get angry. And there's a lot of misconfusion about the way that we speak also. and how we speak, because remember there is other teams also, LGBT teams, that are also angry with women, and women doesn't know that, many women doesn't know that, and their teams, those teams of guys are also fighting women during the season, and that's what is happening around us, the jealousy, and yeah, so lots of things that are happening. But let's all be fine, and let's all be fine, and let's all not be aggressive, and let's all understand them also in the room. They also went through a lot of things, and they also want us to also allow, not allow them, because we can't allow them, they have to allow themselves. And they have allowed themselves to be fine with where they're at, with the challenges that they've gone through. But it is not that we disregard them, but it is that they voice for what they stand for, right and wrong, and we voice for what we stand for, right and wrong. And when we voice, we don't get angry about it, because remember, we all have family and friends that has gone that route in life, and but we don't go and kill one another about it. And I also always say that I will always have a laugh about lots of things, but we don't go and kill one another, because we all did nonsense. I did a lot of nonsense in my life, and they had a good laugh at me the whole season, the whole year. They had a good laugh at me. I was getting angry sometimes, but they never stopped laughing. Why? Because they were teaching me to sometimes be fine with people laughing at you, and sometimes you have to be fine with that also. Other than that, it's all fine and all good, and everyone is all good. Have a stunning day further. Thank you, everyone.